Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to, I believe this is part 7, creating scenery for Microsoft Flight Simulator using free resources. Whew, I need to shorten that title. All right, today we're back to our hangar, and hopefully this is the last day of the initial modeling of our hangar. And what we're going to do today is we are going to add all this stuff. Okay, so we got a fuel tank. We have a protection wall around the fuel tank. We have some kind of utility building annex on the side of the building, and we have some pipes run along the building here, and they come across the building, they go down, and then they hook into this some kind of junction box pump station, or maybe that's where they hook up hoses or something. Not really sure. It's not my forte, but we're going to try to model this as close as we can. There's different ways of doing things, but we're just going to go in and see what we can do. All right. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and add this annex building off. And I've done some pre-measuring ahead of time, and I think it's like 10 by 10. That ain't going to work. Let me clear that. Let me get up here where we got a straight line. The distortions of the images throw some of your measurements off. So we got about 10 feet that way, and come over here, clear that, select that, select that. So it looks like 10 feet wide, 10.5 feet deep. Okay, so that's what we're going to make it. 10 feet wide, 10.5 feet deep. For the height, we're probably, as if I'm measuring this Ford Transit vehicle over here, it probably has a height of 10 feet. Could be, if I'm comparing it, my height using Google Earth is going to kind of, it's not probably going to work very well. So if I click that bottom down there and that top, we're getting about 7 feet. I can tell it's at an angle. So we can call that a standard 8 foot on this end, I guess. And the slope of the roof is it's almost flat, but there's a little bit of a pitch to it. So we'll make this 9 feet tall over here on this end, so we can get we get some kind of a pitch. Maybe make that 10 feet tall on that end. I don't know. We'll play around with it and see what it looks like. Okay. The fuel tank looks like, let's see, if we do a path and try to get this to work. No, let's clear that path. Try to get this to work. Sometimes these, oh, that's good enough. Probably about 37 feet. Yeah, it looks like I overran the distance that way, so we'll call it 33 feet long. And for the diameter, might be 8 feet or so. So let's clear that, and let's get a distance. Yeah, it's pretty close to 8 feet. So we'll call the tank 8 feet in diameter. We'll call it 33 feet long. Alright, so we got the annex. We're going to make it 10 feet wide, 10.5 feet out. We're going to make it 8 feet tall here and 10 feet tall where it comes in contact with the actual building. We need another measurement, and that's going to be from this corner to the corner of our annex service, whatever we'll call it. Let's call it 44.5 feet. Does that sound good? Why not? We can do really whatever we want. All right, so going into Blender, we got our building, got our hangar building, and we are on the west side now. So let's select this wall, which happens to be Quonset, I believe, our part. Yep, Quonset. Let's go into edit mode. All right, so we do have one division here. So let's put a loop cut, but we don't need to make the loop cut go all the way across. So let's go into poly and select this poly and this poly here, so we don't slice all the way across. And let's do an H to hide those, and then come into this poly, do a Control H, and I don't believe it's going to let me because I might have too many vertices to play with. Yeah, see, I got this extra vertice up here that's causing our loop cut not to work, which is pretty typical, okay, for that kind of stuff to happen to you. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to escape out of that, and we're going to reconstruct this wall so we can get rid of, so we don't worry about this here. So I want this to be a rectangle so I can get a nice series of cuts, and I don't want this vertice right here to interfere with this polygon. Alright, so we'll probably reconstruct this wall a little bit, but remember, we have our vertices, so we know where our wall begins and ends, so we can reconstruct it pretty easy. Alright, so let's Alt H unhide those. Alright, and let's go to polygons and select this polygon and this polygon. Alright, and let's go ahead and delete those, except we're only deleting edges and faces, so we want to keep our vertices. Alright, so now automatically, since these polygons right here in this corner, notice how these two parts of the wall went away, is because we deleted any edges and polys, any edges and faces that were associated with these two polygons. Well, since this corner edge was associated with this polygon, it also deleted this polygon. Alright, which is not a bad deal because we have enough stuff to recreate it, right? Alright, so we need to recreate these two polygons right off the bat. Alright, so with vertice select on, let's select these four vertices and hit F to put a new face on there. And let's go ahead and turn our face orientation on so we can see if we're adding a polygon that needs to be flipped. Alright, so we got that wall, and we're going to select these four vertices down here. I don't think it affected that. Right, so we got those four, hit F. Alright, so our face orientation's good, so we're okay. So let's go ahead and turn face orientation back off. So we reconstructed those two polygons right off the bat. Okay, now these two vertices we don't really need, so let's select those, hit delete, and delete your vertice. Alright, now let's reconstruct this main west wall. Okay, so we only want the four vertices in the corner because we want to be able to do loop cuts without any interruptions. Okay, so we're not going to select this vertice, because if I selected this vertice, we'd be back to where we were before. We wouldn't be able to do a loop cut in that lone polygon. Alright, so we have those four corners selected. Hit face, hit F for make a new face, and let's double check our face orientation, and it's still blue, so that's good. And the reason, I'll tell you, the reason why when I recreate it, because sometimes when you create a face, it may create the face backwards than it originally was. But the reason that it doesn't is because the normals for these vertices were correct. The normals were facing out of those vertices. So since those four vertices, the normals faced to the left of our building, our face automatically gets in the same orientation. Does that make sense? Sorry if that confused you. All right, so we have our wall reconstructed, and it only has four vertices for this particular polygon. It's not associated with this lone vertice over here anymore. Okay, we'll take care of that later. There's another trick to fix that later, but it's not going to cause any problems, I'll tell you, at least as far as I know. What do I know, right? All right, so we have our polygon reconstructed. Now we can do a loop cut. We need to make a loop cut from this corner over 44.5 feet, remember? All right, so now we can control R, and now I can loop cut. All right, so let's select that, slide that over till it ends there, and let's move that. We're moving it in the negative Y direction. So G, Y, negative 44.5. So that's where our little outbuilding begins, and we want it to be 10 feet wide. So let's put another loop cut, control R, slide that down to here, and again we're moving in the negative X direction, so that's GY minus 10. Okay, now we want to make a loop cut for the height, and we said that we're going to make our loop cut 10 feet high over here, right? Okay, so we're going to isolate this polygon. So polygon select. Oh, what happened? What happened? What did I do? Oh no. Well, like I said, we make mistakes. So let's control Z, because I might have just made myself go too fast, okay? Alright, so I might have made myself go too fast. I wasn't paying attention. And usually that's the cause of most errors. If I control Z one more time. Alright, so I want to edit, undo. No, I don't. Oh, dang it. Alright, so let's select those two, shift that one and that one, hit F. We should get our wall back. Alright. Oh man, you gotta love working with Blender sometimes. Actually, it's not Blender's fault. I know it's a user error, or as I call it, an IO error. Idiot operator. Alright, so we got our polygon. We're going to control R, get our loop cut back in, slide that over, and turn snap off. GY minus 44.5. My videos would be a lot shorter if I didn't make mistakes, right? Okay, so let's make sure that we're good. Yeah, we got it right there. Alright, so we want to put a loop cut in this polygon, so control R, slide that down, and let's GY minus 10. Okay, now we should be okay. Alright, slow down, Christopher, slow down. There we go. Alright, now we're good. Okay, so we're going to isolate this polygon so we can put a horizontal loop cut that's 10 feet off of the floor, right? Alright, so let's select this polygon and H. And then come back to this polygon, control R, loop cut, click, slide that down to the floor, and GZ10. Okay, so that's the top of our building, right? I mean, top of our annex. Now we can turn those two walls back on with Alt H. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to select this polygon and we're going to extrude it out 10.5 feet. So with that polygon E, and the extrude is always going to go in in the direction of the face, so towards you, or in the positive direction of the face, okay? So I don't need to specify an axis, okay? So I just hit E and put 10.5, okay? So now we have our little annex. Now, if there's a wall here, and if you're doing the interior of the building, you can reconstruct this little wall and put a person door in it, but we're not going to do that right now, okay? All right, so we have that. Now, remember, it was 10, we made it 10 feet here at the hangar wall, but it's 8 feet down here, right? So let's turn on vertices so we can see those, and select those two top vertices right there, and let's GZ minus 2. And if I look at that and I compare that with our photo, because I didn't really know, I couldn't get a good measurement on this end. So either one of two things, okay? Either one of two things is that if we look at the slope of the roof, it's not as dramatic as what we have in our model, okay? There, the slope of the roof looks too much, all right? So either one of two things. This is either 9 feet tall, or this is 9 feet tall, all right? Relatively speaking, all right? So what we're going to do is, I would, looking at our photo, I would tend to believe that this end wall is actually the 8 feet, because it looks like it's almost even across with the top of our tank, okay? So we're going to make, because our tank is an 8 feet diameter, okay? So what we're going to do is, since we made this 10 feet tall over here, and we brought this out and then dropped this 2 feet, this wall we have currently at 8 feet. You with me? See how my brain works? All right, so let's drop this wall where it comes in contact with the hangar down a foot and see what that looks like, okay? So let's minimize that, and let's select these two vertices, okay, and GZ minus 1, and that looks better, okay? That looks better. Now, when you extrude a polygon, you always get a new floor and you always get a new roof, in building speak anyway, all right? So we're not going to do anything with that yet. We're just making the basic shape of our annex right now, but we will separate this all out to their own parts anyway, okay? And we'll call this annex, maybe annex roof, annex floor, all right? Because this is going to be this looks like it's a black rubberized material roofing. Yeah, see, with a membrane, it's probably just a membrane, a rubber membrane for the roof, and you got some flashing there, but we may not model that. All right, so let's go back into Blender, and let's add a new part. So we have our annex shape in there, all right? Now, let's get out of edit. No, I don't want to get out of edit mode. What I want to do is, we are going to edge select, because I want my tank kind of centered on this wall, right? So we're going to select this edge, and we're going to shift S and move our cursor to selected. And that's going to move our 3D cursor to the center of this edge. Okay? So let's work on our fuel tank. So tab out of edit mode. Okay, so we have our So when we add a new object, it's going to add it right there at our 3D cursor. And I just put my 3D cursor there so it's close to where we're working instead of over somewhere else that we might have it. Okay, now let's come up here to our table of contents, come up to scene collection, right click new selection, and come down to the bottom because it usually puts them at the bottom. And let's rename this collection to fuel. And let's just call it fuel. That way it'll have the fuel tank, pipes, anything that deals with the fuel tanks will have in its own collection. Okay, makes sense? Alright, so with fuel selected, fuel collection selected, let's do a Control A. Let's add a cylinder. Okay, our cylinder, and you'll get this attribute box over here. Okay, and the attributes, it may be in this form, it may be minimized, so you might have to maximize that. Okay, number of vertices 32. That's good enough. If you zoom in, if you hit period on your number pad, it will focus into what you have selected. 32 vertices is good enough. If you make it, remember, the more polygons, the slower the draw speed is going to be in your sim. But 32 vertices looks good enough. Our radius, if you remember, is our diameter was 8 feet, so our radius is going to be 4. Okay, and our depth by default for a new object is always 2 units. So if you're in metric, it'd be 2 meters. If you're in feet, it's going to be empirical. It's going to be 2 feet. So our depth was 33 feet, or the length of our tank, right? Okay, now it's not oriented correctly, so we need to rotate that. Alright, so now we can rotate on the x-axis. It'll rotate it this way. Okay, so we're going to rotate x 90. Okay, you got a 50-50 chance whether it's going to rotate to the right or to the left. Alright, it doesn't really matter in this case. Now, if you remember, when you add a 3D object, a mass, so to speak, the mass of the object that you added is always centered on your 3D cursor. Okay, so our fuel tank is half in the ground. We need to raise that up. So let's do a GZ, and let's move that up 4.5 feet because we don't want the actual cylinder on the ground. So I just raised it up a half a foot. Okay, 6 inches. So let's take a look at our prototype in Google Earth and find out where exactly that tank is from the building. Alright, now we called this 10.5 feet deep, and if our tank is truly 8 feet in diameter and we have this big gap over here between the tank and the building, probably tells me that this little annex actually sticks out more than the 10.5 feet. We may add some length to that, like a couple feet or so. Like this might be 12 feet long. It doesn't look like it's all that long, but let's do a path and click that into the building. 11.5 feet. That's not a perfectly straight line either. It's kind of angled, but we may make that 12. Okay, so we can get this bigger gap on this end. Alright, so let's see if we can measure. There's some distortion in here that'll throw our measurements off. But if we click here, click our tank, See, that's not a straight line. See, so our image is going to always throw off our dimensions, and that's one thing that you have to be careful with Google Earth Pro. All right, so we just pretty much have to kind of guess. So if this is 8 and we make this 12 and we're out a little bit from the building on this end, so I'm going to call this distance 3 feet. Okay, 3 feet plus the 4 to the center. So the center is going to be around 7 feet away from the building. You guys with me? Okay, I hope so. All right, so let's take our tank. Whoops. Take our tank and let's move that in the X direction 7 feet. All right, so let's GX7. Well, actually, that looks pretty close to the photo. So that depth might be correct in the first place. So yeah, I like that. It may not be perfect, but it's close. All right, now let's play with the tank a little bit, because we may put a subdivisions modifier on it to smooth out that tank. Okay, so when it renders in the game, it looks more like a fuel tank than a very pixelated circle. Okay, does that make sense? Now remember, if you put a subdivision modifier on it without telling it where not to make curves, all right, you're going to get some unexpected results. Most of you that know Blender know this. Okay, so let's go into edit mode of our cylinder. Oh, by the way, let's go ahead and call our cylinder the fuel tank. Okay, all right, let's go into edit mode, hitting tab, and I want to select this ring of edges around the ends on both ends of the tank, and we're going to put a crease in them so it doesn't. Let me show you what a modifier does to it first. All right, so come over here to the wrench to the modifier, and with the tank selected, go to modifier and put subdivision modifier on it. Subdivision surface modifier. Notice what it does to our tank. Okay, because it's applying the modifier to every edge, all right, including this ring around each end. So what we need to do is we need to tell Blender not that this is a sharp corner. It's not supposed to be round. Okay, it's not. Don't round this on me. Does that make sense? All right, so with edge select, if you click off of it, unselects everything. So if you come down, if you zoom in and select one of the edges with the Alt key selected, it will do a loop select. All right. Then on the other end, you're going to Alt Shift and select the other edge, just like that. Then you're going to right click your mouse button and you're going to mark a seam. So click mark a seam. No, I'm sorry. Let's Control Z. All right. You're going to right click and you're going to, edge crease, not mark a seam. Mark a seam comes in later when we're doing our texturing. So you're going to edge crease, my bad. All right. You can click edge crease. You can do it two different ways. You can select edge crease like this and then drag your mouse until that edge is 100%, okay, like this. So you can control the curvedness at the end is basically what that allows you to do, okay? So we're going to drag it until until this circle turns red, just like that, and then click your mouse. Okay, that's one way of doing a crease, right? Okay, so I'm going to Control Z, go back to where it was before, and under the transform, you see the mean crease. Okay, another way to do that is to select this and then drag it until that is 1.00. Okay, does the exact same thing. Okay, so now we have a crease in our corners. So the subdivision modifier is only applied as it goes around this way, not around this way. Okay, so get out of edit mode, and then when you go into your subdivision modifier, you can increase or decrease the levels in the viewport and the render. It doesn't matter. Okay, so we'll leave it about like that. Okay, we won't make it too smooth because we don't want to affect frame rates in the sim. Okay, so that is part of our fuel tank. Okay, the next part of our fuel tank is that it has to have some stands to sit on, and these are usually pieces of concrete. They pour these into the ground with a certain shape, and then they give it a round top so the tank nicely sits on them. Now you can model that round part if you want, or you can just make a cube and have it go through the tank. Either way is fine because this object will hide what is common to both. So I'll show you what I'm talking about. All right, so we need a starting place for our legs, so to speak, our stand for our tank. All right, now our 3D cursor is now on this wall, but we can now move our 3D cursor to the actual tank itself. So now you can do a Shift S with your tank selected and move your cursor to your fuel tank. All right. Another thing that you can do is you can go into edit mode and select this edge that runs down the middle. Select that edge, go to edge select that edge, and then you can do your Control S and move your cursor selected, and it will actually move it down closer to the ground. Okay, all right, so either way, doesn't matter. If you had it up here in the origins of your fuel tank, then you'd have to move the whole thing in contact with the ground. We're still going to have to do it here too, but all right, so we know the distance between the bottom of the tank and the ground is 1/2 foot because we raised our tank 4.5, the center of our tank 4.5 feet, right? And the diameter is 4 feet. I mean, the radius is 4 feet. So we're up 1/2 foot off of the ground, right? All right, so with your 3D cursor there, get out of edit mode, and you're still in the fuel collection. Do a Shift A, and let's add a mesh cube. So it places a cube right there. All right. And if I did, we're on the right side of our building, so if I did a tilde-R, notice that our cube is 6 inches into the ground, because this is the ground level. All right, our cube is 2 by 2 by 2 feet by default. All right, so we want to make our you know, I just might leave it like that because if it's in the ground, it's okay. It's not going to affect it too much. Nah, let's do it right. Let's hit tab, go into edit mode, turn vertices on, and let's do ghost mode and select these bottom vertices. All right. And those bottom vertices, if you look, the x is -1. If you change this to 0, no, that's not right. I'm sorry. If you change that to 0.5, because it's -0.5, -0.5, it's relative. This point is relative to the center of our mass. Okay? Now, so we got that up to ground. So let's do tilde-r to get that right view again. So the bottom of our concrete is now even with the ground. All right? Now we need to give this some width, and let's go to let's get out of edit mode, and our width is 2 feet, and I can tell you those stands are probably no more than a foot wide. So let's make our Y direction, let's make that 1 foot wide, and we'll kind of skinny that up a little bit, just like that. Okay. Now I'm going to turn off ghost mode for now. Okay. So that kind of looks like that. And we are going to, let's see, let's take that cube, and let's move that in the Y direction down to this end right here. Kind of like that. Now we haven't given it any length yet. We'll do that here in a second. Alright, so we have our cube kind of placed where we want it. I'm going to turn ghost mode back on, and then I'm going to do tilde-T to get a top view. Okay, so here's our tank, and here's our stand. Now we need to scale it in the X direction, so it's big enough to support our fuel tank. All right, so let's scale X. That's SX, and pull our mouse out. And if you want a precise moving, hold your shift key, then move your mouse. So it gives you more control on that. We're just going to move that out just slightly larger than our tank itself. Okay? Just like that. Something easy. Just something easy. Okay? Now, notice that our scale for our object is not equal to 1, right? All right. So we're going to come up to Object, and we are going to apply all transformations. Okay. The only problem with doing the all transformations is it changes our orientation. Changes our origin point of our cube over to the origins of our entire model. Okay, so let's Control Z, because I don't want to move the origins of that cylinder right now. Maybe later I can, but I don't want to right now. Okay, so instead of doing Object, Apply all transformations, just do Scale. Okay, and the origin stays right where you had it, because that's going to come in handy. Because to make multiple copies of that, we're going to do an array. Okay, now here's where I was talking about. You can leave this. If I did let's turn off ghost mode, and I do a period to focus in on that. Okay, if you notice that the cylinder makes it look in 3D, it makes it look like that stand has a curved base to it. Okay, for the tank to fit into. Okay, for all intents and purposes, is that right? Intents and purposes, you can leave like that. You can leave it like that, and just let it interfere with each other. It's not going to make that big of a difference in game in the sim. Okay, But if you want to make sure that there's no interference, you can use the cylinder to cut this shape into this cube. All right, so that's what we're going to do, so I can show you. So if I turn on ghost mode, you can see the ghost of our stand. All right, and you can see the ghost of our tank, and they're interfering with each other, right? Okay, so what we're going to do is use the shape of the tank to cut this cube so it has the shape of the tank in it. So I don't mess anything up. All right, we are going to, let's turn off ghost mode, and let's select our tank. All right, and let's double click on cube and call that stand. Okay, select the fuel tank and make a copy of it. Shift D, escape, so you don't move it. Why am I making a copy of my tank? Well, because we want to keep our tank, but we want to use this fuel tank 001 as a object to cut our stand with. All right, and then we're going to make it disappear. And if we did that, and if we used our original fuel tank when we made it disappear, we wouldn't have a fuel tank anymore. You'll see this in a second. So I made a copy of it, and let's get rid of the 001 and make that, and call that cut. So fuel tank cut. All right, it's not to be confused with our fuel tank. All right, now let's select, I got a 50-50 chance getting this right, and I'm always wrong when I'm 50-50. All right, so let's select our fuel tank and shift click our stand. All right, and we're going to come to modifier, and we're going to do a Boolean. Okay, and our Boolean object is the tank. Is that right? No, it's not. Please hold. Yeah, I love it when I make mistakes. There is a tool for Blender that allows you to bypass doing this Boolean, okay, by just doing simple key combinations. And that's what I'm in the habit of using that add-on, and that's why I selected both. Okay, now in order to cut the tank out of the stand, select the tank, and I'm not using that Boolean add-on. All right, I don't want to confuse you right now. So select the stand, come up to modifier, and go to add modifier, add a Boolean modifier to it. All right, now for the object that you're going to get the difference, okay, you want to make sure difference is selected. For the object, hit the eyedropper and select the tank. Notice how it makes a cut like this. Okay, so if I turn off both the cut and the tank, our object has that in there. Okay, now remember how I told you to make a copy of the fuel tank? The reason I make a copy of the fuel tank is because I have that Boolean add-on. Okay, and so old habits die hard, so you don't really need to do the fuel tank cut. So we can turn our fuel tank on and our fuel tank cut, and we can actually go ahead and delete the fuel tank cut because the native Boolean operation doesn't do it. So edit this video, delete this part. All right, so to make the cut from the tank into the cube, we selected our stand, added a Boolean modifier to it, and selected difference. And then for the object, we selected our fuel tank, and it cut that shape of the fuel tank into our stand. That's what we just did. Now, we want that to be permanent. Okay? So in order to make it permanent, go ahead and come over to Boolean and apply that Boolean. And now, if we go into edit mode and turn off our fuel tank, that cube that we made for our stand is actually really in that shape now. Okay, so we can edit it in 3D space if we wanted to. Everybody understand that? Okay, I know I always go off on a tangent and do something, and we have to get ourselves out of it. Later on in another video, I'll explain that Boolean add-on because it's really helpful and it's a lot faster. You just do a control plus minus and it will delete things and all types of stuff. So it does make things a little faster to deal with. You don't have a lot of modifiers to deal with. Okay? Alright, so let's turn our fuel tank back on. So now we have our stand, all right, in the shape that we want. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add a couple more of these stands, okay? But we already have one created, all right? So in edit mode of the stand, make sure you have ghost mode on. You can select all the vertices, all right? And you can shift D and escape. And then move those in the Y direction, GY, and just make a copy of it so it's on the other end. How close you want to get it, you know, it's up to you. Now that's 2, so let's make another copy of the one that's already selected. Shift D, escape, and move that in the Y direction. And move that down to here. Okay? And then Shift D, escape, GY, move that down to here. Okay, so that's one way of doing it, right? Okay, making copies of the object, right? All right, let's show you the other way to do this. Another way to do this. Let's Control Z, Control Z, Control Z, Control Z, Control Z, Control Z, Control Z. Okay, so we basically undid everything that we did, right? All right, another way to do this is to, let's get out of edit mode, and you can turn off ghost for this, and with our stand selected, let's add an array modifier. Okay, and it adds the object, and by default it's along the x-axis, but we don't want it along the x-axis, we want it along the y-axis. If I did a 1, it puts them side by side, okay, because it's 1 unit apart. But since 1 is equal to the width of it, it makes 2 side by side. If I put a 2, you'll have a space between the two, the distance of the actual object itself. Does that make sense? Okay. If I put a 3 for that distance, in between I have the distance of 2 widths of the object. That's how that works. But we don't want this. We want a actual distance, okay? So instead of relative offset, uncheck that and put a constant distance and expand that triangle. And we want a constant distance between our objects. Okay, so from here to here is 33 feet. Okay, we know our tank is 33 feet. And if I have 4 stands, I have 1, into 3 sections. Okay, 4 stands. I have 1 on each end, 2 in the middle. Okay, but that's 3 sections of our tank, right? So if I put in a offset distance of 11 feet, it's going to overshoot it. I know it's going to. Let's put 11 feet because that's a third of 33. And I make my count 4. I'll get stands that are equally spaced. Now the problem is, since I used an exact number, okay, it overshoots our tank by 1 unit, right? Okay, so let's come over here and make that 10. And it brings this back a little bit, okay? All right, so we can actually expand this further. So let's make our distance between our stands 10.5. Now we're closer to being equal on both ends, right? Then if you like what you see, all you have to do is apply that modifier. Okay. So now our stand has 4 objects in it. We didn't have to copy and place them. Okay, we used the array modifier. You'll have to play with the distances between your objects to get them to lay out right. Okay, so there's our tank. Okay, so we're back. I had to stop and eat lunch. Okay, where was I? All right, so we're going to add a few more things to our fuel tank, and then we're going to start working on the piping. And let's see what we come up with. Usually on a tank, so we got our stands, all right? So we did that by an array and then applied that array modifier. All right, so let's get out of edit mode for our stands and let's go back to our tank. All right, and let's go into edit mode. And tanks usually have, you know, some hatches and stuff at the top, and then they usually have a pump assembly on one end and then some pipes coming out. All right, so we're gonna, it's not, the photo's terrible, so I'm not really sure we're going to get much detail out of the Google Earth, but let's go check. Alright, so here's Google Earth with the 3D buildings, and if I turn the 3D buildings off, let's see what we have going on with the aerial photo. See if anything can stand out. You can't really, the resolution of this aerial isn't all that good, but I can see that I have a pipe coming out, and then it goes down, and then it goes into these series of pipes running along the building here, okay? And then it looks like we have probably a clean out hatch here, a couple little protrusions, I don't know exactly what they are, okay? Now, another option, I'm going to turn 3D buildings on. Another option that you might use is, at least here in the United States, is I can actually go to the website for the local county property appraiser, and they'll have up-to-date high-resolution photos. But this particular county's aerials are, their parcel viewer does, Google Earth is actually better right now. So anyway, so we got some things to put on our fuel tank, and then we'll work on the piping going around here. This video is going to be long, but I'll put timestamps on it, so sorry. Alright, so let's come back here. So we're in edit mode of our fuel tank. Alright, and let's add let's add a sphere. We're going to put a little domed top on here. So let's do a, and it's not going to be a separate object. I want it in the actual model. No, I don't, because my subdivision modifier is going to throw that off. So let's tab out, and let's do a Shift A, and let's add a UV sphere, and it puts it down there because that's where we had that's where we did our stand. So let's move that up, GZ, and move that up kind of like that. All right, and let's go into edit mode and turn on ghost, and let's get a straight on view, which is tilde right side of the building. Okay, so I see the top of our tank right there. So I'm going to select these vertices on the bottom, and I'm going to delete those. Okay. Then we are going to do a loop select. So edge, and hold down the Alt and select that outer edge there. So we select that loop edge around there. And then I'm going to hit F to fill that in with a polygon. All right. Then we are going to extrude it. Let me turn this ghost off and check our face orientation. We're good. Yeah, blue showing, so that's what I want. And so let's kind of zoom in. This is our tank right here. So with this polygon selected, let's do a E for extrude, and then just drag that down until it kind of goes inside of our tank. So we have a dome with just a flat faces right here. Okay. And then we're not going to apply any modifiers to that. So let's tab out. I mean, you can if you want to make that smoother. Okay. But we'll just leave it like that for now, just to give our tank some character. And you can join those together, but if you join these two together, this sphere that we just added will have that subsurface modifier applied to it, and you would have to add some edge creases to get it to only subdivide the way you want. All right, we'll just leave that there, and let's just call this hatch. Okay, just because we can. Now down here we want to put kind of like a box, a small box on this end that the pipes come into. It'd be the pump assembly for the tank. So let us move our 3D cursor to the top. So since the sphere's selected, do a Shift F's, and then cursor to selected moves our 3D cursor to the top. All right. Now let's do a Shift A and add a cube, mesh cube. It's too big, but we'll change that. And then let's move that in the Y axis to this end. Okay. And let's go into edit mode, turn ghost on so we can see everything. Turn our vertices on. Okay. And let's scale that in the Y. Bring these vertices closer to each other a little bit. And I'm just citing it. I'm not using actually a dimension here. So let's scale in the Y direction. Move my mouse about like that, I think. And these don't have to be that low. We can bring them up. I don't mind the interference in this case. It's no big deal. It's not going to hurt anything. I'm not going to do like we did our stands, all right? But we can if you wanted to. So let's move that GZ and move those nodes up just so we don't have a lot of stuff there. And that kind of gives our little pump assembly a little look. We can give it some character because usually they have a, this might be like the valves and stuff, and there might be a pump motor that actually comes out. So let's do a couple loop cuts. And let's go this way and hit my scroll wheel so I can get 2 and hit enter. Oops, escape so I don't move it. There we go. And then let's put 1 loop cut around the top because I don't want, I'm going to extrude this polygon right here this way, but I don't want it to extrude it all the way at the top. I just kind of want to make it look like a motor housing or something. So we'll put another loop cut, and then we're just going to drag that up a little bit, kind of like that. And let me turn Ghost off here. All right. And then we're going to take polygon select this polygon, and just extrude that this direction. So it kind of looks like there might be a motor housing or something right there. All right. And then tab, get out of edit mode. So there's our pump. We'll call that pump. So P-U-M-P. Okay. Now it's time to do some piping. Piping can be done so many different ways. Okay. All right. Let me zoom out here. Piping can be done so many different ways. You can create a whole bunch of cylinders, turn them on their side, kind of like we did our tank, make them smaller, and then you can lay out some cylinders along the ground, make them, you know, the diameter of some pipe or something like that. You can also add in some Bezier curves. And I'm not here to do a total Blender tutorial, but you can add a Bezier curve, and then you can create a cylinder, and then you can tell it to array that cylinder along the Bezier curve. Okay, I usually do that with like hoses and stuff. Okay, but Bezier curve gives us round corners, and we don't want round corners. These kind of meet at almost 90-degree angles, and there's probably there's an elbow fixture in the corner to give them a curve there. But if we use a Bezier curve, we would get a curve that's more like this, okay, kind of like this right here, over here. Okay, we don't want that. We want it to kind of make a 90-degree turn here and a 90-degree turn here. All right, now I'm going to show you something that Blender allows you to do, and it's a free add-on that comes with Blender. And to be honest with you, we already have it activated. If you remember when we activated that extra objects add-on, so we can play with our vertices, okay? Let's move. Okay, let's select our pump housing and do a Shift S and move our cursor to our pump housing. Okay. Now, we can use this plugin, this extra objects plugin, to add piping. Okay, so let me show you how this is done. Now, I might, just for this video so I don't make it too long, I might just put a pipe in for now, and then off screen I might add some more piping to it. All right, so you don't have to watch me do the whole thing, because I'll make this video even longer than it is already. But I'm going to show you, I'm going to put in a couple pieces of pipe, and then we'll move on to another part of our model, and then I will do the rest of the piping not being videoed, because I'm basically going to repeat a whole bunch of stuff. Okay, so with our pump selected, we moved our 3D cursor to that selected. All right, so here's our 3D cursor, so anything we add is going to be right there. If I did a Shift A with the extra objects add-on enabled, do a Shift A, you come down to mesh, and you notice we have pipe joints. Okay. If I add in an elbow, okay, I'll show you. Add in an elbow, and yeah, that's a big pipe. It's not that big, okay? But it adds in a cylinder. It basically adds in 2 cylinders and then creates a bevel and creates a corner, right? All right, now we can come into this add pipe elbow box and put in our diameter, our radius. If our diameter is 2 inches, that's going to be 0.16 inches, okay? 0.1 feet. If our pipe is, looking at the photo, those pipes are probably 4-inch pipes, okay? They could be 2-inch, but I don't know. I'm gonna say, we're gonna say 4-inch for now. 4-inch piping, all right? And if it's 4-inch piping, that would be 0.33 feet. 0.333333 feet. But I want a nice even number, so I'm going to call that 0.32 is our diameter. Okay, so half of that would be its radius, right? So let's make it let's make our radius 0.16. Okay, so that, and then hit period to focus in on that pipe. All right, now you notice that it puts it in with a 45-degree angle. All right, so we want a 90-degree angle. And so you can slide that, and you can see your pipe changing slightly, which is pretty darn cool. We're going to make that 90-degree angle right there. All right, now our pipe comes up and out of our pump assembly. So notice that the origin of our pipe is right there on the corner. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the length. All right. I can't remember which one is the end length. Let's make our end length 1 foot. Okay. So this is our end and this is our beginning. So let's make our end let's make it 6 feet. Okay, and let's make our start 1 foot. All right. Now, any other things we do? Anything else that we need to change before we get out of our menu? Because once we leave this menu, we can't use it again. All right. But I think, and then the rest of it, we can handle it in edit mode. All right. So I think that looks good for now. So let's GZ and move this whole assembly up. Just like that. Okay, so now we have a pipe coming out of the pump. And then I almost like that distance there, but we're going to bring this back a little bit. No, am I? I don't know if I am or not. Okay, so yeah, that's good. All right, now I want to add another corner to our pipe. All right, but I can't add it to this object because this is a pipe elbow, right? So I'm going to add another pipe elbow, but I want it to be right here on the end. All right, so let's go into edit mode, turn on ghost, turn on vertice, select these vertices. Let's focus in on those by hitting period on the keypad. And now the pipe is open. There's no face here, okay, which is okay. It's not a big deal. But I want to select these edges. I want to do a loop select around these edges. So let's do edge select, and I think they're the only ones selected since I selected those vertices. All right, and let's do a Shift S and move cursor to selected. So now anything that we add is going to be right there at the end of our pipe, right? Now let's add another pipe selection. Let me turn off ghost. All right, and then okay, zoom in here a little bit, and let's go ahead and get out of edit mode and do a Shift A, and let's add another mesh pipe joint pipe elbow. Okay, and since the last elbow that we put in had 0.6 feet as the radius, anything that you do will have what you used last time. Okay, so we don't need to make any changes. However, we do want this pipe now to pivot, so we can take this end and put it at the end of this one. You with me so far? Okay. In order for us to rotate, that is, we're going to rotate it on the y-axis. So everything else is fine. All of our settings are fine. So let's rotate on the y, and notice how you can swing that down. All right. Now I think that's -90. Yeah. Okay. So let's type in -90. And now we have a pipe going down. All right. And let's hit our period on our number pad to focus in on that. Now we want this right here to be at the end of our original pipe, right? All right, so what we're going to do is we are going to move that in the X direction with GX. And if I move it where the end is now, my pipe is going to go into my building. All right, we don't want that. All right, so let's move this one out until it's not touching our building. Okay, so we're just outside of the building. Now we can select our original one, and let's zoom in here. And we can turn on our vertices snap, go into edit mode, and vertice select our vertices, and then we can move those in the X direction until they snap at the end of that other pipe. Okay, just like that. So now we have a pipe coming out of our tank, comes over, and then goes down, and now this is going to go into our pipes that are running horizontally along the ground, so to speak. So let's add another cylinder. Okay, and it's going to add the cylinder right here, so we don't want that. So let's select this elbow. Whoops, let's tab, select this elbow, and go into edit mode, and ghost, select these right here, select all those vertices at the bottom, do a Shift S, and cursor to selected. So now our new pipe will be added right here, right? Okay, so I believe that that pipe is about 2 feet off of the ground. I don't think it's 4 feet, like about 4 feet like where we are right now. So let's look at our photo. Well, it may be 3 feet off of the ground, so that might be about right where we have it. Okay, so let's add our new pipe section, about right at the end. Now, here's the cool thing about the cylinder that we're getting ready to add. Remember, it puts the cylinder or the object center of mass where the 3D cursor is. So our new cylinder will actually intersect with this, and it will look like this pipe is actually going into our main pipe. All right, so let's get out of edit mode of this elbow, and let's do a Shift A and add a cylinder, which is a mesh cylinder. Now it puts it up and down. All right, let's turn off ghost mode here, and let's change our radius of our cylinder to be 0.16, which is the same diameter of our pipe, right? Okay, now let's rotate that on the x-axis, which runs this way. So rotate R X 90, and then that puts our pipe running along like this. Now what we want to do, now here's the difference between using the pipe elbow stuff and using a cylinder. The cylinder automatically gets a face at the end. The pipe add-on leaves the end open, which is kind of cool. All right, so we don't need to close that in. Now what we want to do is basically take this cylinder and move it down to in the Y direction. So it's GY, and then just slide that down. What am I? There we go. Oh, I'm snapping on something I don't want to. So let's turn snap off, and then GY, and then just slide this down, just that it overruns just a little bit. Okay, because there might be some kind of pipe clean out at the end, and they probably, so they can do some maintenance on the pipe if they needed to. I don't know if that's an actual 90-degree. Okay, so we'll just do that for now. All right. All right, now we come down to the building, this part of the building, and we want another elbow at this corner, because if you notice, it wraps around our building. So here's our photo, and that pipe comes down this way, turns a corner, goes around, and goes around our little building bump out. Okay, so that's what we're trying to model. Okay, so let's select this select the cylinder, go into edit mode, make sure ghost mode is on, so we select all these vertices. Okay, do a Shift S, move cursor to selected. All right, now we're going to add another pipe elbow. All right, so let's turn off ghost, and let's go get out of edit mode of our cylinder, which is now a pipe. Don't worry about the naming, we can clean that up later. All right, so Shift A, mesh, pipe joints elbow. So now it adds an elbow, except our elbow is going into our building, right? So we need to actually rotate this twice. Okay, so we're gonna rotate it on the x-axis. So rotate X. I think if I rotate that way, it's positive. Yeah, so rotate 90. How I knew is I looked over here and saw that it was putting a negative or a positive. Okay, now since that's lined up with that pipe, let's move this. Oh, we need to flip it in the y-axis, so this points toward us now, right? Okay, so we're going to rotate in the y. If I move that up, see how in my status for rotation over there on the right, you can see whether it's positive or negative. Okay, so let me escape here, stop doing that. All right, so right now it's set at 0 right here on the y. So if I rotate y and I move that up, notice that it's 0.626 and it's positive. So we're going to say actually positive and negative doesn't matter here because we're flipping it at 180. So 180. So now our pipe is facing toward us now. See how that is? Now we're going to scoot this whole thing over until it's close to our building. So we're going to move that in the Y direction until we're close to our building but not going in. All right, so I'm in my building and now I'm close to my building but not in. Okay, now you can either bring these vertices over to here or these vertices over to here. It doesn't really matter. Okay, so let's go into edit mode and ghost. Select these vertices, turn our vertices snap on, and zoom in over to here. And we're going to move these in the Y, GY, over here until they snap. Okay, so we got our pipe moving along nicely. Okay, now we're going to put another corner here. So we can actually take these vertices and we can pretty much extend those in the X direction as far as we want. So let's do that right there. Okay, with these vertices selected, let's do a Shift S, move our cursor to selected, and get out of edit mode, Shift A, mesh, pipe joint, pipe elbow, and now we have another one, right? Okay, now we need to do some, and remember, all this stays since the last one we did was the size that we wanted. All right, then we want to flip. Let's see, I got to flip it twice. Do I have to flip it twice or 3 times? Okay, so let's, I got it. Let's rotate this. This is all fun. Let's rotate Y 90 degrees, so that's standing up. Okay. All right, now let's rotate it X. And I think we're going to go negative. No, we're going to go positive. And if I go 90, yeah, 90 goes the direction that we want. But we need to move this out a bit. Okay, so let's take our pipe and GX, because we're moving it this way. All right, and just so it's not inside the building, and I think we might be, we can probably just snap it to that now. So let's escape out of that and hit period on the keypad to focus our selection. And let's go into edit mode and make sure all of our, make sure that all of our vertices are selected, which they are, but I have active turned on, so GX. Yeah, it won't, that's not the effect I want. Okay, so let's do this. Let's GX, move that out about like that. Okay, that's what we want. And then with ghost on, X-ray, whatever you want to call it, with those vertices selected, let's move those in the X direction till they snap to those. There. All right, now this is such a cool way to make pipe. Okay, you don't have to make a whole bunch of cylinders and stuff. Okay, it does it automatically for you, and this is using the extra objects add-on, which is free with Blender. Okay, and if you don't remember how to enable that, let me do a save. I haven't done a save for a while. If you remember how to do that, go to Edit, Preferences, and then in the dialog box, if you type in Extra, you'll see Extra Objects. Just click, just check mark that box and then close this out, and they'll be active, and these pipe joints will be available to you. All right, let's turn off ghost mode. All right, so anyway, basically what I'm going to do, and I'm not going to videotape, this is not videotape, I'm not going to record me doing the rest of the pipes. I will, for the next video, when we start texturing and all that kind of stuff, I'll have these pipes already complete. But that's all I'm doing is just a series of connecting these, and then making, and added a pipe, and then I'll take all these pipes and I'll copy them and then just move them out, so I have two pipes side by side following each other. Does that make sense? Okay, but I won't record me doing all of that. So I'm going to make this pipe come all the way around the building, come down here, and then I'm going to add a cube down here for like a pump house or whatever it is. And then those pipes will go into that, and then that will take care of the plumbing of our fuel system. Okay, so like I said, what I will I'll finish this up off camera, so to speak, and when we come back to do our textures in the next video, I'll have all of this piping stuff completed. All right, now let's go ahead and add that pump house down at the bottom, down here. All right, so let's select our door shed, go into edit mode, and let's find out where that pump house is. Is it at the end? Yeah, it's like almost right at the end of the building. Okay, so let's, in edit mode of our door shed, let's select this vertice, Shift S, cursor to selected. Okay, and then get out of edit mode, and then do a Shift A and add a cube, which is a mesh cube. Okay, remember that's 2 by 2 by 2. Center of mass is on the ground. So let's move that up 1 foot, which is half. So GZ1, and that brings the bottom on the ground. Okay, and then let's move this in the X direction. GX, slide that over here. Take a look at our photo, see how far it is away. So let's rotate our image here, and let's do a quick path measurement. Got some distortion here, so it might throw it off, so I'll come out here and let's guess that. So let's say that's 5 feet away from the building. All right, so if I go into edit mode and I select, okay, go ghost mode, I have all my vertices selected. Select this corner once, twice to make it active, and let's snap that right to that corner. So G and hit enter, and we move that box right to the center. Now we want to move the entire box to the X direction 5 feet. Okay, so we're gonna GX5. All right, so the beginning of our box is 5 feet away from the building. Go back to our photo and measure our box. So path, let's clear the last measurement, and click here, click there, it's close. Let's make it 7 feet long. That'll work. Let's make it 7 feet long, and how wide? Click there, and click there. 7 by 4. All right. So let's go back into Blender, and since from here to here by default is 2 feet, because that's what the default size cube that you enter in is, 2 units by 2 units by 2 units. So if this is 2, we just need to move these over another 5. So GX5 5. So now that's 7 feet long. And we said 4 feet wide. So let's select these vertices going this way and move these in the Y. Since it's 2 feet already, we just need to add another 2. So GY2. So that puts that box on the ground right there. And then turn off ghost mode. Get out of edit mode. And so that kind of gives our little pump, whatever this is, valve assembly or whatever it is that our pipes are going to come into. Okay, so let's, what do we want to call that? Let's call that valve house. That'll work. Good enough. I know what it is. Okay, and our cylinder that we had before, we're doing some renaming of stuff. We're gonna, well, I'm not gonna rename this yet. So what I'm gonna do eventually when I finish my pipe is I'm gonna select all of my pipes and I'm gonna join those into one object and I'm gonna call it pipes. Okay, so you'll see these names, all the joints and stuff, they'll be different the next time you see it because I'm going to name them what they are. All right, now let's add in just one more thing before we end this video, and we want to add in our protective barrier around our tank, which is just a simple wall. There we go. Okay, so we're going to add in this simple wall starting at the corner of the house over this way, and this way. All right, so let's get some measurements. We know that that's going to the end of the building, so we know that, and we know it's starting here, so we don't need our length really, we just need our height. So 3D path, find a corner, click, click. And we're talking 9 feet tall. I don't believe that. I bet it's 8. Yeah, I don't believe 9. So I'm going to make it 8 feet tall. Alright. So what we're going to do is we are going to build a wall using vertices. Okay. So let's select this. Select our Quonset. Go into edit mode, select this corner vertice, okay, and shift S and move our cursor to that point, get out of edit mode, and then zoom into this area, okay, and I'm going to, at this point right here, I'm going to shift A and add a vertice, mesh, single vert, add vertice. So there I got a vertex right there. And it looks like our wall is about 4 or 5, maybe 6 inches. No? Is it 6? It looks about 6 inches, I think. Maybe smaller than that. It's hard to tell on these. No, that's a lot smaller than that. That's probably 3 inches thick. 3 inches thick. All right, so let's take our vertice and move it in the Y direction over 3 inches. Okay, so that is G, Y, and we'll go in the negative direction, minus 0.25. Okay. This yellow dot is actually the origin, not the actual vertice. The vertices right here. Let me hit P to focus. See, there's our vertice. Scroll wheel out. Okay, now I offset this 3 inches for a reason, because we're going to make a line over this way, over to cross, and end at the end of our building. Then we're going to extrude those edges up 8 feet. And then we're going to apply a solidify modifier to it. So we're going to get a top-down view now, tilde T for top-down. And with our vertice selected, which it already is, we're going to come out to this line right here. We're just going to eyeball it. So I'm going to EX, and we're going to bring that here to that line. All right. And then we're going to zoom out a little bit. And I want this vertice to end equal with the end of our building. All right. So we are going to Y, and then I'm going to drag until I snap to that corner. Okay, I snap to this corner, but I moved this in a straight line. Then we are going to extrude it in the X until it snaps to this corner. So EX, and then snap right there. Okay, so we have our edges for our protection wall. So let's turn on edge select and select all of our edges. Okay, just like that. And let's extrude those in the Z direction 8 feet. So there we have our wall. Okay, now it doesn't have any thickness. Remember, we have a 3-foot thickness we're going to put to it. But we're going to solidify this so it does that for us automatically. And how you do that is, let's double check our face orientation. Notice that they're red. If I did a solidify modifier to this right now, my wall would come out this way. Okay, I want my wall to go in, so I need to select these faces. Okay, since I only have those faces, I can do face select, select all of them, Alt and flip. Okay, so now when I apply my solidify modifier to it, my wall will solidify inside. Okay, so let's turn off face orientation. Let's get out of edit mode because we don't really need that right now. And let's zoom into an area. Let's zoom in this area right here. Come over here to our modifier properties, add modifier, solidify, and we want 3 inches, which is 0.25 feet. And see how that creates that thickness of the wall? Okay. Now, remember what I said about the corners? When you do a solidify, corners will actually come into each other. All right, I'll take a look, and we're going to fix that. So let's first apply this solidify modifier. So now it's part of the object of that wall itself, right? Okay, let's go into edit mode, and let's do vertex select. Select these vertices, hit period to zoom in. Notice how from this point to this point is 0.25, but with the solidify, it did some kind of averaging, and from this point, that's not actually a point, from this edge to this point is less than 0.25, right? So we need to fix that so that looks more realistic. So let's turn on ghost mode. All right. Now come up here to the pivot and change that to 3D cursor. Select a vertice that you know is correct, and Shift S, move your cursor to that location. Now we're going to take this vertice and this vertice down at the bottom, and we're going to scale them so they're on the same Y plane as our 3D cursor. Okay, so that's S, Y, 0. Now the distance from this edge to this point is 0.25 because it's the same as this one. Now we need to swing around like this, and I think we can get the distance between these two edges right here is less than 0.25. All right. So what is that distance? I can't remember. There's a way of doing that. I can create an edge. I can create put in a vertice at this point. Yeah, I can do a vertice at this point. All right, so I need a construction line, something to snap this to, because on the other end it's the same. So this wall is thinner than this wall, but I want it to be the same. So what I'm going to do is create a construction line. So let's get out of edit mode. Oh, no, go back into edit mode. Select this vertice right here. Do a Shift S, cursor to selected. All right. Then I'm going to get out of edit mode, and I'm going to Shift A, and I'm going to add a single vertice mesh right there. And then I'm going to extrude this in the X direction negative, because this is the negative direction, negative 0.25. All right, so EX minus 0.25. Okay, now I have the distance that this wall needs to be out. And then this, I will delete this when I'm done because it's just a construction line. All right, so let's tab at it. Oh, wait a minute. Let's select this vertice, Shift S, cursor to selected. So now this is the point that we're going to base these off of. All right, so tab, select our wall, go back into edit mode. Now select this vertice and this vertice at the bottom of the wall. Come down to this end, select this vertice and the one at the bottom of the wall. Now we're going to scale these in the X direction. We want it to go that way. All right, so SX0, and then now that wall is 90-degree angle at this wall, and this wall is the same thickness as this wall. Just one more fix, and that's down at the other end for this corner. This is 0.25 inches up here, but it's less from this point to this edge. So we need to move this back even with this vertice right here. So select that vertice, Shift S, cursor to selected, select this vertice and the vertice down at the bottom, and we're going to scale it in the Y direction, so SY0. And now all of our walls are perpendicular to each other. So we fix that wonky corner stuff. All right, so we get out of edit mode, turn on our ghost, turn off our ghost, see what our protection wall looks like. And I believe that they probably have some kind of a gate right here. Yeah, right here they have a gate. It's probably 3 feet wide. So we can add that really quick by just doing couple loop cuts, and then we can texture it different, you know, so it looks different. So what is the distance from the corner to there? And we're looking, let's call it 8 feet just to make things easy. So in edit mode of our wall, Control R for loop cut, click there, slide that down at the bottom, to the end, and then GY minus 8 because we're going in the negative direction. Okay. Oh, notice on the loop cuts when you do these kind of wall type stuff, see how that's at an angle? We'll have to fix that too. Okay, let me turn on ghost mode and show you. Because this end is beveled, any loop cuts that you do are going to be beveled. All right, just understand that that's how Blender works, but we want this straight across. Do you guys remember how to do that? Well, that's easy. I'll show you. I mean, we've been doing it when we did our corners. So select this vertice right here, move your cursor over to there, Shift S, cursor to selected, and then select this vertice and this vertice, and we want it on the same Y plane. So SY0, and now they're straight across. See how easy that is? All right, now since this is a straight loop cut, it's not beveled anymore. If I come out here and I do a Control R, because I want to make one 3 feet this way, Control R, see how that's beveled? That yellow is kind of beveled up here. If I click on it and drag it to the end, it gets flatter and flatter until it matches this one. Now, since it matches this one, now when I do a GY minus 3, this is now parallel with this. I don't have to do that scaling based off of the 3D cursor on that. See how that works? Okay, so just little tricks here and there, things that you have to know, the characteristics of how Blender does things. All right, so let's get out of edit mode, turn off ghost, and let's take a look at what we have. I'm going to do a save, file, save. All right, that's all we're going to do today. Long video, very long, sorry, but we are done with our modeling part. Now, we probably, in coming videos as we're texturing, we might make a few little objects here and there because we might be missing something to do something. But get your building modeled, and then we start texturing. So thanks for watching this video. Thanks for your patience. You guys are great. I hope you learned some cool tools, especially about the pipes. I just love that tool. Okay. So thanks for watching. If you haven't, please subscribe. And if you feel inclined to support me, I have a Buy Me a Coffee account. My Physical World is who that's through. I would appreciate anything that you can give, to help me pay for some things, even though I use free resources, right? But we have modeled our hangar as best as we can get it for now. And the next video part of the series, we're going to start doing our texturing, different ways of doing textures, okay? So thanks for joining me, and I hope you learned something new today, and I will see you guys on the next one, which might be in a couple days. It's probably not going to be tomorrow, okay? So I got some planning to do, plus I need to install Sim Update 8 yet, so I'm going to do that tonight. So and then I got my scenery that on flightsim.to that I need to verify that it all works for Sim Update 8. So my next video is going to be in the next couple days. But in the meantime, if you guys want to finish your piping around the building using the same method that we did for this part and get 2 lines of pipes to meet this block down here at the end, try that on your own. Okay, and then you can compare it with what I finish in the meantime. All right, so no video tomorrow, probably maybe not the next day either. So the next video will start the texturing. So you guys have a great day, and I will see you on the next one. See you later.